Welcome back to Daily Flash. I'm Mitch English. Our next guest, Karen Mangia, has a new book out. It's called Sundays with Salvator, 52 recipes to cultivate conversation, connection, and community. It's actually a look into the decades of dinner conversations between her and her 100-year-old first-generation American and World War II veteran grandfather. Karen joins us now. Karen, thank you so much for joining us on this show. This sounds so much fun, and the fact that I imagine it took a while to get these conversations into one book. Am I right?
It did, and I started thinking about really the intersection between the idea of Tuesdays with Maury meets maybe a Giada De Laurentiis cookbook.
Okay.
Because what I realized is there was so much wisdom and joy that my grandfather was sharing with me every single Sunday, gathered around this dinner table. And I thought, what would happen if we could all have that feeling of stepping out of isolation and into the kind of Sunday dinner tradition that is comforting and nourishing in every possible way?
I love that. To get us into where you are, let's talk about your Sunday dinner traditions. And you mentioned how special they were. What was a typical Sunday dinner like for you?
A typical Sunday dinner is showing up mid-afternoon and finishing preparing a meal together, and then sitting down device-free and having a conversation over this meal. And my grandfather is a naturally curious person, so he'll often ask, "Now I've got a question for you," followed by wondering how something works or a question about a great debate. And often we include other family members like my nephew you see here in those Sunday dinner conversations and traditions as well. And then what's amazing is when the meal concludes, we don't hop up right away. We sit and continue the conversation.
Kind of based into it. It's kind of like a good steak that you had there. You don't cut into a steak right when it comes out. You let it kind of sit there for a while. I think that you get that. What I appreciate about what you just said is that here's a guy who's a centurion who's asking you and wanting to learn more. You know what I'm saying? Where he was like, well, tell me how that works. And imagine that's what a conversation garners out of something like that. Did you find yourself thinking, wow, here's a guy that probably knows everything. He's lived life. Were you still surprised that even after those many years?
Yes, and it might surprise you and the folks watching to discover he still day trades stocks on his 3 iPads, smartwatch, and 2 laptops. And so he'll ask me questions like, what is this cloud technology and how does it work? And what does it mean to live off the grid? And let's talk about Bitcoin. Is this a sustainable currency? And I thought, for someone who's seen what he's seen and experienced in 100 years of life, to still be that curious and connected, wow, isn't that the fuel of living well, being curious and always having an appetite to discover more?
And by the way, Karen, can you explain Bitcoin and blockchain? Because we'll do that some other time, okay? All right, let's talk about some of the advice, and I'm sure it's really hard to narrow it down. Maybe some of the best advice you've received from your grandfather in these discussions?
What shows up for me as the pearl of wisdom that has enabled him to live well all the way to 100 years old is that contentment is the most worthwhile wealth.
Okay, explain that. Explain, meaning just being content with everything?
Being content in the sense that he ran a finance and insurance business. He was in World War II. He raised 3 children. Let's be honest, at 100 years of age, he's outlived a lot of family members and friends. And he's never allowed himself to get too high on his successes or too low on his losses. And as a result of that, I feel that he's been able to make the most of and be fully present in every moment without worrying too far into the future or reaching too far into the past and staying there. And what we could all learn from that experience of being content with who we are and where we are and who we're with at any given moment.
And there's recipes in this book, right? As well. I mean, actual recipes, well, which is great because then you can say, all right, well, we're going to make this tonight. You have a favorite recipe that you've pulled out from that book, and why?
My grandfather's favorite certainly is our family's homemade Italian meatballs. That is a definite standout favorite. And if you're looking for something maybe a little simpler, there's some ways to use some of that summer garden produce as well as a fantastic dark chocolate glaze that you can drizzle over your favorite angel food cake or pound cake.
Wow. All right. Now you're making me extremely hungry, from those steaks to the recipes that you in here. This is a great idea, and I imagine it does a lot for you, but there's those that read it can really understand that there is a time to keep on learning and cherish the moments that we have with people. I love it. If you want more information at home, you want to get a copy of the book, Sundays with Salvator, you can go to KarenMangia.com. You can watch this interview, of course, on our website, dailyflashshow.com. Thank you so much, Karen.